Right. So you ever have one of those light bulb moments where things just click? Yeah, I think you know what I mean. I had a big light bulb moment a few years ago. And actually it was a couple of years ago, but let me give you the backstory, okay? So about 5 years ago, a friend of mine, Billy Potter, thank you, Billy, who works for a competitor, actually, Snelling's Walters Insurance. Love those guys to death. Love Clay Snelling's and what they're doing there. You guys have taught us so much. But if it weren't for Billy, I would not have had that major light bulb moment. A few years ago, Billy and his kids go to school with our kids when they were little, and he's also a member of our church, so we knew each other through those avenues as well. But I just got a random text one day from him saying, "Hey man, let's meet up for breakfast." All right, cool. Hadn't really gotten a chance to talk to you much. Would love to catch up with you. So we had a great breakfast. I don't even remember what we talked about, just everything. I'm sure we solved all the world's problems, right? But at some point during the breakfast, he started listing off different books that he was recommending to me. And I love reading. Well, let me caveat that. Even though I was an English teacher, I hated reading. I know that sounds so contradictory, but I love reading business books. I don't know why. I'm just a geek that way. But I could rattle off to you, so many different business books that have helped me over the years. But one of the books on the list that he gave me was called Traction by Gino Wickman. Traction, like your tires get traction, when you're driving. And we'll make sure that that's in the description for you to, click on and see for yourself. But Traction, I read it the first time and I thought, that's really interesting. I mean, the 30,000 foot view is that it's, a lot of different theory and some practicality about how you can run your organization. And I thought it was good. And I kind of put it over here on a shelf and thought, okay, maybe someday I'll do something about that. A couple of years goes by. I start thinking about that book again and I read it again. And I was like, okay, yeah, I could see us definitely doing that sometime soon. Now, at the time, I did not own the agency. My father, who started our agency, still owned it. And so there were some things I was thinking, well, I know that I'm going to transition into being the owner, so maybe it needs to wait until after that. So a couple of years ago, we were on our annual incentive trip. I think we were down in Mexico. We take our producers once a year to somewhere, usually in the Caribbean, like St. Lucia, Mexico, all these other places, Dominican Republic. We had a blast. But it's a great way to get out of the office, quite honestly. If it's something that you're not doing in your agency, I would ask someone or just see if you can do it yourself, because it's a great way to disconnect, just chill out with the people who are making things happen in your agency and get to know them on a different level. So tangent, right? But on the plane down to Mexico, I listened on Audible to Traction one more time. And I had the book with me as well, because I intended to kind of reference back to it. And it clicked for me, because at this point, I own the agency. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is something we need to do. And I'll kind of explain more about what that is in just a second. But I handed the book to our COO, John Hall, when we got off the plane. And I grew up with him. And one thing I know about him is that he actually learned to speed read in high school. And he kind of has a photographic memory. So I knew it wasn't going to take him long. So I handed it to him and I said, dude, you need to read this and we need to do this. He's like, all right. Literally the next afternoon, he walks up to me on the beach and he hands me the book and he's like, dude, you're right. We need to do this. And I was like, yes, man, we are going to do this. So what Traction taught us is that every organization has an operating system, right? Just like your computer has an operating system. What I discovered is that I think our agency at the time was probably running on the equivalent of Windows 95. No joke, right? I mean, even though I'd done all this stuff to help us grow technologically and plug in and all this stuff, I still felt like from an operational standpoint, systems, workflows, meetings, company culture, defined vision, reviews for employees, all those things were just sort of, I don't want to say haphazard, and I don't mean any disrespect to like my father who built our agency to what it was, and anybody else who helped us, because we did a really good job. But this really put into perspective for me, oh my gosh, there really are things that if we just put them in place, we could really get a hold of what we need to do to break through the ceiling. And this is one thing they talk about in traction all the time is, you get to a point, and I know that you've probably felt this way, whether you're an agency owner or whether you have a book of business and you're just trying to get to the next level, right? You see some of the Nintendo stuff. I'm a big Nintendo geek, and it's like my thought is always, how do we level up, right? And this helps you do that. It lays the foundation, the framework, right? If you're building a house, you have to have a frame in place, right? Before you start putting on the siding and the roof and all this stuff, right? This was the framework that we needed very, I don't want to say desperately, but I think quite honestly, most organizations, if they don't have that kind of system in place, they realize that once they start putting those things in place, that they need it. So I'll tell you one of the things that really made the most impact for us, that kind of was the catalyst for implementing everything in what Traction defines as EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And it's an actual thing. And now I've discovered that there's like over 100,000 businesses worldwide that are running on EOS. And there are implementers that will help you implement this in your organization. We actually have had somebody help us with that, and has done a fantastic job. So basically, the thing that really kicked it off for us, that helped us understand what our vision was for the company, what we needed to focus on to break through the ceiling and move to the next level, was we first needed to define what are our own core values. And I know that sounds like a silly place to start, but it really isn't. What we did was we took the leadership team. Now it's an official leadership team, but the people in our organization, there was just a couple of us who I would consider like my right hand people. And we got in a room and we said, okay, who are the people in our organization who, if we could clone them, we would dominate the industry, right? And so we had a handful of people, and I'm sure you have a handful of people in your organization that fit that definition. And then we said, okay, what makes them tick? What are the qualities? What are the words and phrases we could literally, and we did, we threw them up on a whiteboard that describe these people, that make them who they are. And we put probably 75 to 100 different words and phrases up on the board. And then at the end of about an hour, we had, scratched them out and combined them and to a point where we had 5 core values. 5 core values that express very succinctly who we are at our core. That's why they're called core values. And from there, you're able to look at the rest of the people in your organization and say, do they fit these core values? Now, the cool thing for us is that the vast majority of the people, the answer was yes, they do. And the cool thing about that exercise was that we didn't choose those core values from a menu like you're ordering in a restaurant. Oh, I thought this one looks good. This one looks good. No, we literally uncovered what was already inherent in the fabric of our organization. And it validated for us that, yeah, this is who we are. We are passionate advocates for others. We have a grow or die mentality. We are creative problem solvers, all these things, right? That those are a couple of our core values. And what's cool too is that even though Billy had taught me about this, and I had had conversations with Clay at Snelling's Walters. They have a completely different set of core values. That's what I love about our organizations. We can share ideas like this, like life-changing, organizational changing ideas. And we're still friendly competitors, right? They have a totally different set of core values. No matter what core values you end up uncovering, I guarantee you they will be unique. Maybe you have 4 of the same that somebody else has, but you're not going to have 5. I can almost guarantee it. And we have sub descriptors for our core values. So there really is an opportunity for them to be unique. But I guess the point I'm trying to get across is in order to take either your agency or your book of business to the next level, for me, that epiphany, that light bulb moment was, oh my gosh, we have got to take it back to the basics of what it means to run a world-class business. And like I've said before, begin with that end in mind, because once we had our core values established, the next thing we did, a la Traction, was to say, what are those, big, hairy, audacious goals, those BHAGs? What's the big thing we want to accomplish, right? And we put a revenue number out there, and we said, we're going to hit that. We're going to hit that revenue. For us, it was revenue growth. We're going to hit that 10 years from now. And here's what it's going to look like 10 years from now. We're going to have this many people in our organization. Our organization is going to look like this. By the way, one of the things Traction talks about is, instead of having an organizational chart, to have an accountability chart, because it's a much more powerful thing. Organizational charts, you tend to plug people in where they already are. Accountability, it erases the names. You don't focus on the names or the faces of the people. You say, what does this organization have to have from an organizational standpoint, right? A visionary, that's the leader. Somebody we call the integrator, that's our COO for us. He integrates all the other parts of the business. There's 5 core components, by the way. It's visionary, it's integrator, it's sales, it's service, and it's admin and finance. And then from there, you can start to grow, like fill out the accountability chart. And it's called the accountability chart because then you plug in the faces and names into the structure, and it automatically shows who's accountable to whom. Because if you've ever gone to the gym like me and then quit after like a week, right, you need an accountability partner. You need somebody who's going to hold you accountable for the goals that you got to achieve. In our organization, even I'm held accountable for my roles and responsibilities, which each seat on the accountability chart lists out the roles and responsibilities each person is responsible for executing on. So for me, it's creating the big picture. It's developing big relationships. It's steering the ship. For an agent, it's obviously going to be sales. It's developing a network of people. It's, getting a certain number of referrals or whatever that is. So, there's so much, and it would take me hours to unpack what we learned from Traction, but that was our light bulb moment. That was, for me, the thing that made me say, oh my gosh, there is a ceiling that we've hit and we've been trying to bust through it. And now we have the structure, the accountability, the core values, the system for meetings, the reviews, all these things that, just like a computer, help you operate at the most efficient level that you possibly can. So I encourage you to check out Traction. And I encourage you, if nothing else, try that exercise for sitting in a room with the people in your organization who are in charge, and do that exercise to at least uncover your core values so that you know who you have and you know who needs to be on the bus, and maybe whose tribe is somewhere else. Doesn't mean they're a bad person, but maybe their core values are not aligned with yours. And maybe for, humanity's sake, to be humane, you need to actually have an open, honest conversation with them and say, love you, but your tribe may be somewhere else because we notice you're struggling. So there's so many things to unpack, but try that exercise. Check out traction, and maybe it'll be a light bulb moment for you.